Hey everybody, welcome to this weathering tutorial. I got this Hasbro Black Series Remnant Trooper for Christmas, but I just wasn't happy with the way it looked. The hands were very white, some of the armor was stark white, and the effects just looked printed on, and I wasn't happy with it. So I think we can do a little bit better for really cheap, so let's get started. So here's what we're going to need. We're going to need one Remnant Stormtrooper. We're going to need some green heavy-duty scour pads, Scotch-Brite. Those are Target brand, they're cheap. A safety knife and a sharpener. Some golden acrylic high flow, burnt sienna, raw sienna. We're also going to use their black. I'm also going to go ahead and use some metallic gunmetal from Plaid and some of their black acrylic. I've given the figure an alcohol wipe down real quick to make sure there's no mold release or anything like that on there. As you can see, I'm wearing a glove and a band-aid from the previous video because I hurt myself with my Leatherman, so I'm being extra careful here. And I'm just adding physical damage to areas like the wrists, the tops of the glove plates, and especially the shins, top of the helmet, where you may have bounced off of things in pursuit of suspects and doing dastardly Imperial things. You know, being a Remnant Trooper on the outer reaches, you're probably doing some very illegal stuff, so you're going to get into a scrape or two. Be conscious of where you're cutting to. As you can see, I do little things towards myself, which I probably shouldn't do, but I've been doing it for years. It's a hard habit to break, although I am trying to be conscious of not cutting towards myself. Your backpack area, you know, the backs of your shins where you might sit down or lean against something are places that would get scraped up. Some of the digs are deeper than the other ones, and also a trick you'll see a little bit later is I take that Scotch-Brite pad and just go over and buff the high traffic areas. That also adds that look of, hey, this is really banged up and this has really been scraped up. Here I've got that Scotch-Brite and a pair of junk scissors that I use for cutting sandpaper and Scotch-Brite. I just chop off a section, and here I am just going in different directions back and forth over and over because I really want to create a look of worn in, and you don't want that high gloss from the armor. If it's been out in the sand and been in combat and been living in the desert, it's not going to be super shiny. There are sure one or two places that might be, but it's not really going to stand out that well. Here I'm being very careful to do the helmet. I wanted to convey that this bucket's been set down, banged up against things, you know, used as maybe a footrest while this guy's off duty or hanging out with his other troopers, and really going into areas where I think that there would be scratches and bumps, especially the top. We've all seen the famous blooper footage of the Stormtrooper knocking his head onto something, so I just wanted to convey that, that level of damage to this guy. Here you can see I'm going in kind of almost drilling with that knife, making a little semicircle cut. Maybe he got whacked in the back of the head with a stick, or someone took a pot shot at him with a slug-firing rifle, which they do have in Star Wars. Weathering is all about telling a story, so there's layering. Now I'm going back over the forearms again into areas that I've already done and creating cross cuts, taking off some of the damage that's already there, making it a little more pockmarked and worn, because you want it to tell a story. I want a cut that's fresher to look a little bit less shallow than maybe something that happened a while ago, and it's got a cross-sect with. Now we're getting that high flow black, which I use as a wash, and I'm just taking this brush, it's a smaller brush, and I'm getting into all the crevices underneath the plates of the armor, around the areas where the armor has mold lines and things like that. Like, I want to capture all the detail that I can. I start with the arms, mainly because that's what I start with. I apply it and then I wipe down, because you're going to wipe your stuff down. Gravity is going to cause any dirt, grime, liquids to run down into creases and crevices, and so that's what you're trying to capture here. We're trying to build up layers and make it look as though years of aging have happened. As you can see here, I'm wiping down towards the bottom of the figure. I'm dragging that stuff down, I'm letting it streak. I also let it dry just a little bit. Now, next you can go ahead and get the cod piece around the butt. Make sure you get in between the legs. I've forgotten that myself sometimes, and then when I'm posing the figures for a photo, I see this glaring area that I didn't get, and we get that spread eagle money shot there. That's for his Stormtrooper only fans. So I've got that black on, and I'm just smearing it on. If you don't have the golden acrylics, you can just get regular acrylics and do a 10-to-1 water to paint ratio. Add a couple of drops of rubbing alcohol or dish soap to make it flow a little bit better, and it works just the same. So we're all done with the black. I've let it dry for just a few minutes, and now we're going on to the burnt sienna. It's a brown, and I'm focusing closer on areas that would be more in contact with the sand, like the forearms, the hands, and the boots. This Stormtrooper lives on a desert-like planet with limited plant life, so there's not a lot of grass for him to walk through, so I didn't do any greens. If your Stormtrooper is a trooper on a green planet, you might want to use more greens and yellows and blues for weathering, but this is more natural to the area that I'm going to have them displayed in the area that they'd be living in my universe. Here I've gone ahead and wiped off that brown. Now we're going to raw sienna because that's going to be the brightest, freshest color on here. And we're telling a story, we're layering it in. And I'm just getting the boots and some of the areas that have high contact. I'm going to let that dry up a little bit. Then I'm going to use that sock again and just pull down all the color into the areas where it would build up, fresh and new. Looks good from where I'm standing. Now I'm using the regular black acrylic to get into the areas around the shins, the shoulder bells, the stomach armor, I guess abdomen armor, and around the area of the backpack, and I'm going to let it dry completely and then buff it off with that sock. Again, you see me pulling it down as I wipe, and it just lets it all fall into those little areas where it would build up. It would be permanently dirty or greasy. Maybe it's carbon scoring from the armor being hit, by blaster fire, and they've wiped it down. Because, well, they are remnant troopers on a planet. They are still Imperial, and they do try and kind of keep a uniform look, try and keep their armor that white, menacing appearance that they have. Personally, I think that's one of the terrifying things about the Stormtroopers is they're all that white, menacing, it's the Imperial look. They are troopers and they stand out, and that's the thing, is they're covered in armor so they can take blaster fire. Imagine a battalion of just white soldiers marching towards you, and it's kind of scary, and it's cool that not necessarily the good guys wear white in the Star Wars universe. Sometimes the good guys wear black and carry a lightsaber. It's great. Here I go with one of the final passes of that Scotch-Brite, just hitting the super high areas that would be the first areas to rub off any dirt or grime and make the armor really pop and sell as worn plastic, Duraplastic. Blaster time. I'm just using gunmetal acrylic, putting a little bit on there, taking most of it off, and dry brushing this little guy until he's got highlights, because you know what, damn it, if the armor's going to be all banged up, the blaster's probably going to be all banged up too. It's not going to be in a super great state no matter how well you take care of it. That blacking that's on real guns in the real world wears off, and so in the Star Wars universe it does too. There's the before and the after shot. I hope you guys like it. I think it stands out a little bit more and looks more realistic. It doesn't have those stark white pieces. There's that butt shot. Everything is looking good with this trooper, and I'm happy. He's going to go live with his battalion on the world that you can see I'm building. There's some of my diorama pieces, and I'm just super happy with it overall. I like the way it holds up, the way the armor rubs against itself, and just creates this really cool looking character. Thanks for watching my video, guys. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to see you next time. Be well.